So today I'm in the garage working on the tractor, and we're going to do a brake job. I've removed the fenders as well as the tires just so that I've got room to work and to get in to remove the rear axle. The rear axle is very heavy, and so I'm using the engine hoist right here to actually support the rear axle when I go to pull it out. And in order to get that in where I need it to go, the fenders had to come off. So that's the reason I took the fenders off. Now you don't need to remove the fenders to do a brake job if you have assistance in removing the rear axle. But because I'm working alone, I'm trying to modify what I have here to make it work, and it's working out pretty well. I was able to pull this side of the tractor's rear axle, and it is heavy, very heavy. So if you're going to do this by yourself, you definitely need something to help you support it as you pull it out. The brakes do have oil on them, so that's probably why they didn't work. Like I said earlier, the springs and everything look good, and then the pads, they're not even close to being down to the rivets. And I can clean these up. From what I have read online, is you can hit them with some heat, like just a little torch, and kind of burn the oil off, but not making it too hot to where you release the rivets from the pads themselves. I'm not going to go through all that. I've already ordered pads. I'll put new pads on. Just laying out the parts beforehand. Again, making sure that I've got all the correct replacement parts. So I've got two new brake pads that you see here. I've got the new springs as well as the connecting pins here. This little gray thing you see in the front is a liner that actually goes on where the drum fits over onto the rear axle drum in the back. So I've got everything that I need to redo the brakes. So let me go ahead and do that, and then actually we'll rebuild both of them tonight, so that I've got that out of the way, so that when I go to put the axles back into the trumpet housings, those are all set and I don't have to mess with them again. So let's do some brakes. Because I'm dealing with the high tension springs, I've got some safety glasses on just in case something should fly. But the first thing we want to do is take off these 4 retaining clips. And they just fit on there. You gotta turn them until the end of the retaining pin fits through the cap. And it only fits on there one way, and then once it's in there, you give it a turn, and that's what holds it on. So there's 4 of these, 2 on each side. So let's go ahead and take these off. I'll take all the old parts and put them over here. So we'll, pretty easy. These are pretty much, if you owned an older car, when I mean older, I meant 70s, 80s, or back, pretty much the brakes are the same. So nothing new here. Old technology that worked great for a long time, and they kept using it. Take that off, and then take a pair of long pliers here, and we're going to go ahead and just take the pressure off this spring. Now there is a lot of pressure here, so be careful. Grab these other ones here. Okay, I've gotten the 2 bottom springs off by prying those out with a screwdriver and a heavy pair of chain locks. Now to take this spring out, what I've seen is that they've taken this shoe, opened it up, and then slowly release the pressure so that the pressure on the top spring here is off, and then you can go ahead and remove the spring like so. So this one's really got a lot of tension on it. So I'll take all of my old parts, put them over here to the side. Alright, now that I got this cleaned up, I can go ahead and reassemble. First thing I want to do is put back in this liner that's here. And this just fits down inside here. It'll only fit one way, the other way will be too big. And this just goes all the way around. There's a groove that goes all the way here. So that's what I'm going to do now. Let's just put this liner back in first. We're just going to push down on that. I probably should clean my hands and keep some of that oil off of that, because it's supposed to keep the oil out, and why put oil on it if it's supposed to keep it out? So, and as you can tell, the brakes, the old brakes were full of grease, so it's a messy job when your seals leak onto your brakes. But yeah, this just goes on here, and we'll just turn this, put this in place. Okay, and then we have a little bit left over, so what I'll do is I'll get a knife and cut that off right here. Put this down in here, nice and tight. Okay. So now we've got the liner in all the way around. Now the next thing we'll do is go ahead and put the shoes in. Now we're ready to put the new shoe on. And what we want to do first is align our brake pedal over here so that this is even with our brake pad going this way. And with that, this will fit right up in there nice and tight. And then we'll take one of the new pins and slide it in the back, and then we'll take a bottom cap which has no indention on it, just a slot, and we'll slide that over the pin. Next we'll take a spring, we'll put this in here, and then we'll take one of the top caps which has an indention on it, and we'll put that right on top. Now the next thing we're going to try and do, I'm going to try and do it by hand here, is see if I can suppress or push down on the, oh, can't do it, I'm going to have to use a pair of pliers. So we're going to have to push down on the spring and the cap until it lines up. Oops. Well, I've got the new hardware on the brakes. I didn't get much video of it, as it did take me a little while to make sure I got it all on there, and I did struggle with getting those springs on there. I don't have there's a special pair of pliers you can get. I think they're called brake pliers. That'll help put that on. So the only thing I need to do now is just make sure that I get these shoes a little bit more centered. I think the spacing on each one of these tabs on the bottom right here need to be kind of equal before I put it back on, otherwise the shoe won't fit. But I've got the new hardware on there, the new brakes, pads, so this is about ready to go back into the hub itself. But before I put this back together, I'm going to go ahead and put in what they call these sure seals, which is going to go down in here and seal all of this so that it doesn't leak through and get on the brakes. So I've got the seals. I just need to pack this these bearings in here full of grease. So that's my next step, is to pack that full of grease and put the Sure Seal on there, and then I'll put the axle back into the trumpet housing here before I go over and do the other side. So let me go ahead and finish putting this Sure Seal on, getting that sealed, putting the brake assembly back onto that axle, and we'll put that back in. Okay, so at this point I've gone ahead and packed this wheel bearing with some Lucas grease. I figured I'd go ahead and put quite a bit in there, because on the seal itself you'll see that there's quite a bit of room up at the top right here, and I want that full of this grease as well. So I packed it all down inside. I've got this amount here, and then I'll slide the seal over top, and then we'll just push that in. Now, how I plan on pushing this in is I've gotten a 3-inch PVC pipe, and that'll fit right over the sleeve itself. And then I'll just go ahead and pound that in and make sure that it goes in straight and it seals it perfectly. So there'll be a little bit coming out, but that's okay. So let me go ahead and pound this in, and then I'll show you what it looks like after I clean it up. That's what it looks like after the Sure Seal is on there. Now, one of the things, before I go ahead and put the brakes back inside the drum and slide it on there, what I need to do is clean out the drum itself, because you can see right here it's pretty dirty. So if you remember, you know, the brakes that I took off of this were full of oil, and it was because of you know, it leaking around the bearing here. So I need to clean this before I put the new brakes on. If you don't clean it, otherwise your new brakes will get that residual oil on them until it burns off. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this, and then go ahead and put the brake assembly back on. So that's how you change the brakes and put in a new Sure Seal. Pretty simple in my opinion, not too hard. You just got to make sure the hardest part of this is getting that Sure Seal on there straight. So I should have good brakes when I go to put this back together. Alright, let me clean this up and put it together.